Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Alan Singer.
Educator, historian Dr. Alan Singer is with us again, a regular with Media Watch, and our special guest is Richard Prince, the founder, editor, creator of Journalisms, which is an online site that actually does what we try to do, which is take a look at what's going on in media and see how well it's being handled, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. Is that close, Richard?
That's it.
And just to make sure that people find him, it's journal-ism. Journalism,
With an S,
ISMS.
yeah.
Journalisms.
Right. I'll explain that.
Okay.
It focuses on diversity issues in the news business, and it started out with the National Association of Black Journalists. They had a publication called the NABJ Journal. This was part of that, and so the journal is hyphenated. It's journal hyphenated because the journal part stands for the NABJ Journal. So that's an easy way to remember that it is hyphenated. And it's journal-isms.com.
Yeah, we actually originated out of the New York Association of Black Journalists
There you go.
when, and because certain elements there didn't seem to want to play along, we decided we'll just keep it going anyway. So
Good for you.
but we're doing this the Wednesday, November 4th, right after
5th.
November 5th. That's correct. The day after the election results across the country and are being done by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Zoom, all of us, and it will air on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, hopefully next Monday, whatever that date is, 5 days from today. That would be probably the 10th of November.
Yes.
And we'll put it up on YouTube, Facebook, and elsewhere. But we're doing it under the umbrella of, and I'm going to go to Alan Singer to tell us the exact name that we're going to be focusing on, which is dealing with journalists and journalism. And Alan, November 1st was what date?
Okay, November 1st was International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. And according to them, verifiable, as of September, Gaza is the deadliest conflict ever for journalists. More journalists were killed in Gaza than both world wars, the war in Vietnam, wars in Yugoslavia, and war in Afghanistan combined.
So yeah, that we're going to try to dig into in depth, or as close to in depth as we can in the short time that we have, but we'll kick it off under that same rubric of press assault, press attacks, and we include under that disinformation and misinformation, because real journalists have to deal with so-called journalists and influencers and who knows what, anybody with a camera or a microphone or whatever can call themselves a podcaster, and by so doing claim they're journalists. That's another debate that we can spend another hour and a half on a separate show. But the disinformation reared its ugly head, of course, yesterday and leading up to yesterday's election. And so, quick like, the results of yesterday's election nationally, where the New Jersey gubernatorial race, for one, had gotten really ugly and really nasty with Mikey Sherrill against Chitterelli, and Chitterelli got some GOP friend to dig up her file from the National Archives. I forget where they got the file, but all her personal information got put out there, and they were charging her with cheating at the Naval Academy. It got really nasty, and there was a lot of not good information on both sides, because some of her charges against Chitterelli about fentanyl abuse and stuff got a little iffy. But that was one example of misinformation and disinformation that tried to affect the race. In New York City, talk to us about Mondami and his election. How much Islamophobia did we see, guys, on that?
Well, go ahead, Ray.
No, you go ahead, Bob.
Well, like I was saying just before we went on the air, I knew it was coming I didn't know it would be so bad from so many quarters. Uh, some people were out loud with their Islamophobia in painting. I mean, even President Trump kept calling him a communist and dangerous to the city, dangerous to the country. I knew that was coming. I didn't know it would be so loud.
I'm surprised you were surprised, Bob. I saw it coming a mile away, and I saw it coming to that extent. I will agree that it was more money poured into that than I had expected. But the coverage, no, I did expect that. I didn't know that they were that scared, but I'm glad they were.
No, that you making a good point with the money. All that money that was poured into it because the old folks, the old guard were scared. They
Yeah.
knew they were losing their grip, and they spent all that money to knock, this young guy out, which they failed.
The thing that I'm surprised that they did was they invented a black organization that came out against him, supposedly. That you had mentioned up earlier, Eric, when we were talking before we went on air. Well,
I wrote it down, the National Black Empowerment Action Fund. Now, we've never heard of this group.
Which is
It's national. Richard, you're one of our national guests.
they're making
You
up
ever heard of the organization, Richard?
No, I have not.
So look, this isn't just in New York, but Alan, you were talking about somebody, what, the Federalists out of DC? They had a big anti-Mondami.
The Federalist Society is a major right-wing think tank, and they're the group that proposes all the right-wing Supreme Court justices. And they ran an article which also appeared in the New York Post. And what the article said was, and I'll quote it: the terror attacks of September 11 forever changed New York City and the United States. It's hard to believe that 24 years after the attack, New York City may elect a Ugandan-born Islamist mayor who openly campaigned with an unindicted co-conspirator in the first World Trade Center terrorist attack. Now, there's a lot there. I mean, why are they getting involved that he was born in Uganda? Again, that's a trope to disqualify him. He's an Islamist. He's not an Islamist. If anything, he's an agnostic. He is from an Islamic background, but he's not an Islamist. He went to high school of science. He's a scientist.
Yeah, I mean, and Richard, one thing all of us admire about your work is the depth of the research that you do. I mean, it's always your journalisms are always very well detailed and very well researched. Did the tenor of the past election shock you? I mean, you've absorbed a lot, nationally too. You cover a lot.
Well, no, it didn't shock me, but I just read a very interesting take on this whole election by Brian Stelter, who's a media reporter for CNN.
I just saw him a few weeks ago in New York, but go ahead.
There you go. There you go. Well, he pointed out that a lot of the media missed what was the biggest issues for ordinary people, which were the economy and how their daily lives are affected. Now, that was mentioned, of course, but when you have these groups of panelists talking on all the talking head shows, you don't have anybody representing those folks. And his point was that if you did, we would have been a lot closer to what was actually going to happen. They said the same thing in the last election about Trump versus Kamala Harris, and the fact that it was the economy, as with Bill Clinton's campaign. The economy is stupid, and that's what drove people to sort of, well, not desert the Democrats, but to not give the Democrats what they expected to receive, because they weren't focusing enough on the economy. And that's one of the reasons why so many of these people voted for Trump. Now, a lot of these people are disenchanted because it is still the economy, and the economy has not gotten better. But when you have people who can relate to those kitchen table issues, evaluating what's going on in the political world, I think you're a lot closer to what's really going on.
Richard, that's a very important point because if you look at Mondani in New York,
Yes.
Sherrill in New Jersey, and the gubernatorial candidate in Virginia, they're not similar.
Mhm.
They in Virginia and New Jersey run very traditional Democratic Party campaigns. Mondani ran from the left as a social democrat, but what they shared in all three campaigns was the idea that people were suffering because of economic conditions.
Hmm.
That was the unifying thing in the campaigns.
Well, one of the unifying things for all three campaigns, in my estimation, is the guy in the White House.
Mm.
Yes.
That's the guy, one, responsible for the economy. That's the guy, two, that decided he's going to purge DEI out of everything in the society. That's the guy who sued all these legacy media people, and most of them bowed down and kowtowed to him. And that's the guy, because of his suit against CBS, who has now leveraged that power and bully pulpit into making CBS cave. And that's what I'm calling it, CBS caving. And that's the news division, because they just gutted their entire DEI whatever so that Skydance could get that merger. And he promised the Trump people, the Ellisons, father and son, that they would gut DEI, which they did. Richard, you ran a piece on journalism that went down the entire litany of folks who just got axed, not just at CBS, but also NBC. But let's start with CBS. 8 anchors, four on as far as visible people, hundreds are trimmed, but visible folks, 8 anchors, four of them, all eight were all women, if I remember correctly, and four of those were women of color. Talk to us a little bit about the blowback from that and what the message is on that latest move.
Well, the DEI advocates, diversity advocates, and inclusion advocates are up in arms about that. And the this fellow Trey Sherman was one of the producers for the CBS Evening News streaming project, and he made a video about what happened to his unit, and that all the people who were axed were people of color, and those who stayed were all white, and that went viral, 3 million viewers.
Mhm.
So the National Association of Black Journalists invited him last Saturday to speak with them. And he did, and he was rather eloquent about what's going on. But he spoke about the larger issue, which is that this issue, this the media consolidation that Trump supports is fueling a lot of this. And in the sense that you mentioned Skydance. All right. Paramount and Skydance want to be able to merge. They need to get government approval. The government is anti-DEI. So naturally, Paramount and Skydance says, oh, we're against DEI. The same thing happens. Comcast is one of the sponsors of the new White House ballroom.
Ballroom, right.
Yeah, that required the demolition of the East Wing.
Mhm.
They're one of the sponsors of that. Why? Because that's the way Trump does business, is quid pro quo. And so ABC and Disney they agreed to pay ABC all this money because of something that George Stephanopoulos had said.
Yep.
I mean, and it goes on and on and on. Bezos with the Washington Post and the opinion pages. Patrick Soon-Shiong with the LA Times.
Mhm.
This is the environment in which we are living. Now, what this fellow Trey Sherman was saying was that these journalism organizations, such as NAPJ, need to expand their purview and take on this larger issue of what's going on with Trump and the FCC chairman trying to control the media. Now, about a year ago, I guess at the beginning of this year, Mark Morial of the Urban League
Mhm.
got together with some pro DEI advocates, the Legal Defense Fund, women's groups, Hispanic groups, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And they had a strategy session that was broadcast. And he said, by any means necessary, we will fight this thing. And then after that, they went up to see Hakeem Jeffries on the Hill. But they also invited the media organizations, the Black Press, the National NPA, National Newspaper Publicists Association, and NABJ to join them. To date, they have not.
None of
Uh,
them? None of them?
no, well, that's just those two have not joined, and I think that's what this guy was talking about. You've got to, I mean, now some journalists have a problem with affiliating with activist groups because they say, oh, we've got to be neutral, we've got to be impartial, blah, blah, blah. But when the very profession is under fire, you know, you've got to be a little more realistic. Uh, so that's where we are now. The new president of NABJ, Aaron Haynes, is taking more of a leaf out of that playbook and saying, yes, we've got to look at the big picture here. So we'll see what happens.
Richard, do you think Gail King leaving CBS is related to this?
No, 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 she's not leaving CBS.
That's rumor. That's rumor. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. That's
She
very
said she loves it there. The original story was just that she might leave that show,
right.
not that she would leave the whole network.
Look. This whole thing. I saw another story pertaining to Gail King,
Mhm.
there was this shot of Gail King with who's the guy, Waters from Fox News.
Oh, Jesse Waters.
Jesse Waters, okay, and somebody said this is Gail King being quite strategic because she didn't need to post that shot with Jesse Waters, but Gail King has a fairly decent slot where she is. She likes where she is. She's letting those folks know, yeah, I'm flexible. I see which way this wind is blowing, which wind is where it's stacking. So she's taking pictures with Jesse Waters. We'll see how that goes, and we're whatever goes. But Nora O'Donnell didn't seem to pull any punches, at least with the two questions at the back end of that interview she did with him about pardoning the cryptocurrency guy. And you guys remember how that last two questions went? Want to discuss it briefly so we can segue?
I mean, I know what you're talking about. I didn't see it, but yeah, Nora O'Donnell, former anchor of the CBS Evening News, and now with 60 Minutes. She was good with the questions she peppered Donald Trump with last Sunday. As usual, he just went into his campaign answers. So the answers were lightweight, but the last two questions were pretty good. A, dealing with the cryptocurrency guy. You can go ahead and explain that. And what was the other question?
The key one was the cryptocurrency guy. You pardoned
Right.
this guy who pleaded guilty to money laundering and had to pay a $50 million fine.
Yeah, but didn't he
So why
bump
why did
a
you
whole
pardon him?
bunch?
And his answer was, I don't really know who he was.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm told he was given a raw deal by the Biden administration, and I
Yeah.
want us to be the leader in crypto, so that's why I pardoned him. And that was
But
why.
wait a minute. What's the bottom line on that? Didn't he buy a whole bunch of Trump's
Yeah, yes,
Bitcoin?
she asked him
I
about
mean,
that.
like I'm talking like billions of dollars of Trump coin.
That was the second question that Nora asked him about the crypto.
Yes, you
Those are my
nailed it,
sons.
Ray.
That's not me.
Right, right. It was a
I
member of
don't
the
know who he
family.
is, but his organization bought about 172 billion of my thing,
Yeah,
top of my
exactly.
It
cryptocurrency.
sounds like a mob family.
Well, sort of
Look,
is.
look, enough of that, but yeah, that's part of the assault that we're under. Let's segue over to the real assaults that
Mm.
we were listing in Gaza and elsewhere, because the article I read on CPJ's website, Committee to Protect Journalists, was Israel has killed over 200 journalists in the Gaza war not since the Gaza war. Over 200 journalists have been killed by Israel and the IDF since 1992. The 2 year Gaza war, they've killed 197 Palestinian journalists in just 2 years. So those numbers you were talking about earlier, Alan, about more people being killed than all those world wars added up together, there is no doubt that those numbers are accurate.
Yes.
It's not just the Israelis who are killing journalists. CPG
Journalists have been
pattern.
killed in Sudan and
Talk
Pakistan.
about Mexico. I mean,
Yeah.
we got the cartels killing a whole bunch of folks. Richard, you had a list of. Do you recall who the Mexican journalist was?
No, but I do want to make. I'm glad you brought this up because I don't think that Americans, and particularly journalists, American journalists, pay enough attention to what's happening to their colleagues in these
Mhm.
other countries.
Yeah.
Right.
Cuba is one example. Nicaragua is another example. Honduras, and then in Burkina Faso, people like to talk about this Pan-African solidarity, blah blah blah. Burkina Faso, uh, 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 not brass, they corralled some journalists to join their army and forced them to fight. I mean,
Seriously?
I
right.
did not see that story. When did that happen? I
Yeah,
did not see
well,
that
they
story.
finally released them after about 6 months.
Oh,
But
wow.
but I mean, things like this are happening all, in that same column you'll see about Cuba and what they're doing. I mean, it's the outrage for me is that so many people overlook all of this these press freedom issues in favor of going up to a place where the night vacation, or if they want to be anti-American and say, oh, this is just more imperialism, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
without realizing that these are real people and your colleagues who are suffering because of this
Yeah.
stuff.
No, right next door in Mexico, there are
And
just
Mexico. Well,
ton
see,
of,
Mexico,
ton
I think it's the cartels that are doing a lot of this.
yeah, that's not the Mexican government. It's the cartel.
Right. These are cartels. This
Most
is
of
not,
these other places, they're the
yeah,
government that we're
yeah.
fighting.
And I'm sure the
The
Mexican
government.
government doesn't have clean hands, but they're not
Yeah.
the
No.
majority of what's
Yeah.
going on.
But again, in
Go
just
ahead.
the United States, because it's easier for me to follow. The British journalist, political commentator Hamdi had his visa revoked at the San Francisco airport, and they sent him to a detention center.
And the
Hispanic
reason for that,
journalist,
the
hmm?
reason for that,
Because he reported negatively on Israeli actions in Gaza. An Hispanic journalist, Mario Guevara, they
Oh,
deported him to El
El Salvador.
Salvador
Yeah.
for covering an ICE protest. And then the Australian author, Yasmin Abdul Magid, was denied entry into the country, so she couldn't attend speaking engagements. And then our great ally in Belarus,
so
that Trump calls a respected leader, they got 27 journalists in jail.
this,
Well, this is going on also right there in New York, and down at down
yes,
at
ICE in New York. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. No, but
yes.
you're right. I mean, it used to be that if a journalist was killed anywhere in the world, it would be like major
Yes.
news. It would
Yes.
be so rare. I mean, I used to teach at Long Island University. There's a room named after a slain journalist, one of the computer rooms. I mean, that's how rare it happened. I mean, it was
Mm.
so, you would have a big to do.
Be
But
noise. Yes.
in Gaza, there's so many dead journalists. You can't count them.
When
Uh,
Bill
it,
Stewart,
and those are only the ones we know about.
when Bill Stewart got killed by Somoza's folk during that Sandinista revolt, the fact that an American journalist was summarily executed by that soldier brought that regime down because the
Sure.
press in this country and across the globe rose up in arms, and every story was this regime has to go. Now they're just killing journalists with impunity all over the place. But Richard, your thing about, and Alan, your thing about the U.S.
yeah.
not doing their stuff. Look, that brings us right back to the fact that this country is now building a propaganda machine. Talk to us, Bob, Alan, talk to us. Richard, you've been following this stuff about the requirements that the Pentagon has put on journalists that our regular journalists, real journalists have said, no, we're not signing that. We
Exactly.
refuse to do that crazy propaganda nonsense so you can curtail freedom of the press. Tell us, list the new quote press corps that's being built under the guise of a press corps for the Pentagon. Just tell our viewers, please.
Yeah. Well, you can read it. I don't have all the names handy, but you can read the New York Times has a story listing them, and basically they are fringe outfits or political groups that are right wing. And the same thing is happening. It's not just the Pentagon. The same thing happened with the White House press
White
corps.
House.
Yeah.
And they decided to they're not even journalists. They're influencers, I guess you could call them, who have gotten the prime seats in the press briefings. April Ryan, for example, who always uh, has a question about what's happening to black people. She says she's having trouble being called on. I mean, this
Yeah.
it's insidious, and as people have pointed out, rightly so, when you have an authoritarian ambitions, the first thing you do is go after the media,
Mm,
because when you control the media, you control so much else,
yeah.
and we've seen that around the country. And of course, Trump admires people like what's his name in Hungary,
Orban in Hungary,
right, right.
Xi Jinping,
Yes, all these people
all
who
these autocrats.
clap, yeah, and the same thing with Cuba. I mean, so that's why it's important for everybody to understand that when you move toward authoritarian like this, you have to resist, and that includes journalists, media organizations. That's one of the problems with that this fellow who made the video pointed out, that there's so much media consolidation going on that requires the approval of the government, that it makes those organizations bend toward the authoritarian instead
Mhm.
of bending toward the general public.
And with that, we have about 90 seconds left. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness.
Time goes fast when you're having fun, Richard.
I guess so.
But to try with 90 seconds,
Yes,
here's what we need to think about. NABJ, NAHJ, all these organizations, as Morial had said, they
yes.
need to actually come together and put out some kind of statement about not just how close we're coming to autocracy and freedom of the press, but how not close we've come. We have become a war crimes nation.
Mm,
They need to be screaming about these boats being shot out of the water every
mm,
day, nonstop, because this country is committing murder.
mm.
That's a journalistic mandated mission that should be screamed at from the top of every flagpole.
Mm.
And I don't know, you guys chime in on that before we run out of time.
Well, it also requires good reporting. Were there really drug smugglers on those boats? Does the United States have the authority to do this? I mean, a lot of that goes to right the core of journalism. Let's get the facts and report them to the people.
And with that, we have about 15 seconds.
So guess what? That being the case, I want to thank Richard Prince, founder, editor, bottle washer, cook, everything, for joining us. Journalism's, right? Journalism's,
Journal-isms.com.
right. And folks, this has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Alan Singer.
And I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And stay safe, folks. We'll catch you the next time.
Thank
And
you
of
for
course,
being,
and of
Richard.
course, thanks to Richard.
Yes.
Thank you all.